Hi, my name is Sandile, and welcome to Aneovers. Over the past two episodes, I spent a bit of time talking about why I created this channel, what is the motivation behind creating it, being a curious mind, being someone that has always wanted to learn, has always wanted to know, has always had a passion for keeping up. And I mean not keeping up from a material perspective, but keeping up from what's happening in the world. So that's how I find myself creating this content and kind of what's motivating me to carry on. And then in the second episode, I spoke about why. So a bunch of different things kind of led to me being comfortable with the space and being comfortable with Web3, Metaverse, cryptocurrencies, NFTs. But I thought we haven't spent time looking at what these things actually are. They're buzzwords for now. It's things that people are talking about throughout the world. It's things that people are excited about throughout the world. But what does it actually mean? What is Web3? What is Metaverse? Why is it Web3? What happened to 2 and 1? Let's talk Web3 and the Metaverse. These are two different concepts. Metaverse being one, Web3 being one. But I think let's look at the evolution of how we got to Web3 and then let's build the puzzle to kind of locate ourselves as to why we are here. So I saw a tweet that spoke about the millennial generation being the bridge generation. We are the link between the kids that used to play outside and would be called by their parents when the sun goes down, to the kids that don't go outside and stay indoors and play on their multiple screens. So millennials are the bridge between before the time that there was internet and devices that you could connect to the internet with, and now where you could basically connect almost anything to the internet. And I'm going to get into that in terms of what that means and kind of how it has evolved. So let's take a step back. Let's zoom out. Let's look at where the internet came from, where Web3 started. So in the 90s, we got the early signs of the internet coming through. There was very limited use that you could use the internet for. I think you could send emails at the time, but it was very text focused. It was very limited. The amount of websites that existed on the internet in the 90s and early 2000s was very limited, and also access was very limited. So very few people actually had the opportunity to use the internet, and even before that, have access to devices that allow them to access the internet. So very few households had personal computers. Cell phones didn't exist. So you'd either have to go to a library or an internet cafe to be able to use the internet. And I mean, it sounds unrealistic to say that you'd have to leave your house and go to another location to access the internet. And I mean, I read a post by someone on Instagram, a DJ, that mentioned that he used to run his company initially without having devices that he would use personally. So you have to go to the local library, the city library, to run his business. So there was a cap, and I think the cap that he mentioned was 250 megabytes or 150 megabytes for the day that was given to you by the library for signing up. I mean, you look at that now, 150 megabytes is insignificant. It's not something that I can even, browse the internet with. So to move from then in the early 2000s, late 90s to now, where I can access the internet on my phone, right? So that which was having very limited internet, being able to access the internet in very specific locations, only being able to email was Web 1. So there's very few online platforms that I can access. There's very few things that I can do on the internet. I can only exchange via text, and I can only send email, which is the majority of what people were doing with that first version, which was Web 1. That evolved, and I mean, just to also expand on what Web 1 meant is I didn't own anything that was on the internet, that I was putting on the internet. I didn't have an opinion. I was mostly being fed information by corporates that were on the internet. So this is Web 1, where as a public citizen, I've got very little control of what's on the internet. I don't have an opportunity to input my information on the internet for other people to see, and my information is controlled by very few organizations. So that transitioned into Web 2, where we started now being able to input information onto the internet, which we were able to ultimately use and share with other people. This is now when social media networks came up. This is when blogging became a conversation. Companies like Facebook in the early 2000s, I think if I remember, Facebook kind of became a thing 2003, 2004, and then it kind of blew up in the mid to late 2000s. Blogging was a thing. I remember I used to have a blog on Tumblr, which now is a platform that is a shell of what it used to be. So there was always opportunities then, and companies that are creating opportunities for you to put your own information on the internet and have your own opinion. But the limitation was that you don't own that information. That information is owned by the corporates that you put the information on. So if I post on Facebook, Facebook owns that information. I can't monetize it, and I can't benefit from what that information does. I can definitely increase my influence because of having a certain number of followers, but I can't monetize a specific post or a specific picture that I put onto this platform. So that it became the evolution to Web 2, which is where we are now. And I mean, it has evolved slightly further than Web 2 in the sense that we are now starting to see people being able to monetize audiences through different elements of corporate giants within the social media space. People are getting paid for having strong followings. People are getting paid for having a strong enough voice, but it's still not owning the information that you're putting online. It's still owned by corporates. So getting to Web 3. Web 3 now is the third iteration. It's the third, and technically the name is Web 3.0. That is the third evolution of the internet. So phase 1 or Web 1, I could send an email and I could input text, but I didn't have the right to have my opinion on the internet because I didn't have presence as an individual. Second layer, I have an opportunity to create a presence, be it on Facebook, a profile, on Instagram, on Tumblr, and I can have an opinion. I mean, there was MySpace back then. I can have an opinion, but the limitation is that I don't own that opinion, but it is my opinion nonetheless. That transitioned to where we are moving to now, which is Web 3.0, where I have an opinion and I can monetize my opinion. So I can create a post, and through a variety of different things, which I'm going to get into, I can monetize what I put onto the internet. So that's the evolution of Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. And we find ourselves now between Web 2 and Web 3. It is a big shift because we are now moving from my opinion, not just being my opinion, but something that I can monetize and be fed from. And I mean, we're seeing it with influencers and the content creators being the biggest kind of growing, one of the biggest growing economies that exist. An example that's actually a very current example is how Prime, the drink, has blown up through two specific influencers, KSI and the Logan Paul, if I'm not mistaken. So they have been able to monetize their posts sitting on a social media platform through buying or through selling a product that they've branded and marketed. So that's one avenue that content creators are making money from, but this is the first iteration of what Web 2 to Web 3 looks like. So yes, that's kind of docking Web 1, 2, and 3. So this is where it starts getting a bit tricky, but keep up. So within Web 3, there's a couple of different elements that you consider. There's cryptocurrencies, which takes the form of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Dogecoin, and an endless list of other coins, both being coins that are linked to actual currency. So there's a USDT, USD Tether, which is linked to the US dollar, and this is happening where countries are working with their central banks to create digital currencies that are linked to their actual currency. So that's one conversation, that is cryptocurrencies. The next layer is NFTs. So this is my ability to show that I own something digitally through NFTs effectively. So the NFT, I hold this NFT and it says I own that piece of land in that metaverse effectively. But I can also use it, and in recent cases it's been used to trade real life things. So people can now buy tickets to events as NFTs. And the nice thing about NFTs is that you can trade NFTs without someone else facilitating the trade. So I, as a Sand dealer, can make a trade with an individual that is not in South Africa, and no one has to facilitate the trade. The only way that we can track that trade is what we call the blockchain. So this is another layer of Web3, where to track transactions that happen within Web3, they are all tracked or traced on what is called the digital ledger, aka the blockchain. And this is where all our information and transactions and trades and activities within Web3 sit. The blockchain is effectively a digital ledger that holds all transactions, and depending on where you are in your journey within Web3 or the Metaverse, you can either have your own chain or network, where Bitcoin has its own network. So I can trade Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network. So it limits the amount of friction that I have as I'm trading, and it's an opportunity for me to benefit from the transactions on the ledger, but as well as the value of the coin. So now the worlds start intersecting, where the blockchain keeps the information of trades that are happening within cryptocurrency and NFTs. So at the most basic level, the three key things to understand within Web3 are the blockchain, which is the digital ledger that tracks all transactions that are happening within Web3, NFTs, which is a tradable asset that people can attach to an item, be it a digital item or a real life item, be it a house, be it a ticket, be it a variety of other things that people can attach an NFT to, or cryptocurrency, where I buy Bitcoin for X amount based on the daily value of Bitcoin at the time, and I can hold it where I can earn interest on the value of the coin going up or down, or I can buy because I see a potential of the coin going up in value, or sell because I see the market coming down. So there's a bunch of different ways that I can interact with cryptocurrencies, and there's a bunch of different cryptocurrencies. And I think getting into which ones to invest in is a whole other conversation, because a lot of people share content around the best cryptocurrency to buy that will 10x, effectively 10x your investment. So there's a lot of schemes that are being posted by people where they're saying they promise that their coin is going to do better than the next coin. So it's something that you must keep an eye on. And as I said previously, always do your own research. People are going to be selling things to you all the time. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen the posts on people or comments on people's posts where they share about how they've been helped by X and X person who's given them an opportunity to make X amount of money and they've 10x their money. Personally, I don't believe any of that. I don't believe anyone coming to me selling me the idea of being able to make money. I'd rather go out of my own way to look for an opportunity to make money than for someone to come to me and tell me that there's an opportunity to make money. So just from a scam perspective, always do your own research. And always understand that as much as it feels like it's internet money, this is real money, and the opportunity for losing money is real. As I've said previously, people have lost their entire life savings investing into NFTs and Bitcoins, and it's something to be taken as seriously as investing in retirement annuity, in unit trusts, because effectively it's financial transactions. So yeah, and then that effectively is the Web3 world. So focus is NFTs, it's cryptocurrency underpinned by the blockchain.